Distinguished guests on the panel, venerable monks, ladies and gentlemen. My topic in this seminar is sustainable and responsible tourism, past, present, and way forward. I'll not be presenting an academic paper, but just sharing my experience as a critic of tourism and a promoter of village level, people's level tourism in Ladakh, and some experience with being responsible for the tourism sector in the Ladakh vision document. If I was to sum up the grammar of tourism in Ladakh, I would say past perfect, but if present continuous, future tense. Past perfect, what do I mean? Tourism, as mentioned, started in Ladakh in 1974 in a big way, and I see the beginning of tourism in Ladakh as the best thing to happen to Ladakh, as a great rescue. You may find this like a paradox, but for understanding this, you will have to understand the times before tourism in Ladakh. It was very different and very special for Ladakh. My elders would remember and vouch for it. In the 60s and 70s, Ladakh was newly open to the rest of India, not the world, and we were exposed only to media and whatever came from the mainland India. And unfortunately, India was newly independent and therefore still reeling under colonial times, or the hangover of colonialism, I would say, which meant that India saw everything that was like their master's ways as developed. The Western way was the way. Anything different was primitive, was backward, and therefore Ladakh was seen as a very primitive, backward, uncivilized place. And every Ladakhi was made to feel that way. It was infused through cadres of hierarchy of officials, and more dangerously through the school system. This was a time, my elders would remember, Ladakhi people were at the lowest of their self-esteem. Families would encourage their children to speak in Urdu and not Ladakhi. Songs abound from that time. You can study it from the songs, which say, Gyabla lokpa gonte jigjigra rigmacho, Kangla pingpa tumste, dokdogra rigmacho. You primitive Ladakhis, don't be scary monsters with your sheepskin on the back and your felt shoes. Don't be scary old men. Modernize, civilize. These were our own people writing songs like this. But very interestingly, 10 years later, the same scholars, songwriters were celebrating Ladakhi dress, Ladakhi culture, Ladakhi food. What happened? That changed everything in 10 years. Well, in that era, there was an unchallenged single influence of West is the best. But then, my elders would again remember, early 70s was also the time when the West was itself going through a realization of what industrialization was doing to them. Environmental problems were surfacing in a big way. Social breakdown was surfacing in a big way. India was still oblivious of it and celebrating industrialization, and that was the impact coming to Ladakh. But tourism, when in 74 Ladakh was opened, it sort of short-circuited the whole thing, and we were suddenly face to face with this realization of the realities of industrialization. Ladakh was a very difficult place to come in those days, and there's a Tibetan proverb that says, if the valley is reached by high passes and difficult passes, the best of friends and worst of enemies are its visitors. So, because Ladakh was a hard-to-reach place, we had the best of thinkers from around the world who came to Ladakh and brought us the first-hand experience of what industrialization and so-called modernization was doing to the West. And therefore, Ladakhis saved a lot of time in understanding the ecological disaster that modernization was becoming. And therefore, I call it the best thing to happen to Ladakh, early tourism. But coming to present, well, after the early phase of intellectual tourists, cultural tourists, then started the mass tourism. As mentioned here, tourism from 500 grew to stabilize at around 18 to 20,000 a year. By around 2004-5, it was that way. Most of, average of 20,000. And suddenly, it was opened for mainland tourism in a big way through Sindhu festivals first, and then the films, to come to roughly 200,000, tenfold by 2012 or so. And it was all blindly done. In a way, you could say it was like a use and throw style of tourism development. Places were opened that were restricted, flung open, without any preparation, without any study of what should be done to minimize the negative impacts and maximize the positive. So Nubra was opened, Pangong was opened, Dahanu was opened, free for all, thrown open, hardly any intervention, and we see all the damages that it is doing. Now it is roughly 150,000 per year or per 5 months of the summer. If you distribute that, it would be roughly 30,000 generally, 150,000 distributed over something like 5 months, which is same as the population of Leh town, because tourism is Leh-centric, city-centric, so you have almost 30,000 tourists in the summer months for 30,000 people, local people, and you have roughly 30,000 soldiers. So you have 1:1:1, tourists, soldiers, and local people. And nowhere else can you see it, the impact clearly, than the garbage disposal site, which is called Bamgar. I would recommend that while you visit the monasteries and forts and palaces of Ladakh, take a pilgrimage of this garbage dumping site, Bamgar, and see how it is being handled. I need not say more than that, and you'll understand what is happening. Now about the future. If we don't want present continuous and future tense, then we will have to think of some other way of managing tourism. And I am very sure it can be managed beautifully to a very positive impact rather than what it is doing now, killing itself, suicidal. We are these days working to set up a Ladakhi people's alternative university in the deserts of Pyang. It is alternative in people's because we want to find Ladakhi solutions to all the problems that Ladakhis face that no one else can find for us solutions. So I'll share with you the visions or the missions that we think as a possibility of future of tourism in Ladakh. I'm not concerned with 150,000 number. If we manage it beautifully and in a decentralized way, it can be a very positive impact. In fact, more can be accommodated. If it is not all dumped in Leh, killing Leh and killing all the villagers, because all the opportunities are in Leh, so villagers are all rushing towards Leh. Instead, if we decentralize and spread it around every village, then you can see what can happen. Ladakh, Leh and Kargil, with its population of roughly 2.5 lakh, I would say has about 50,000 homes. Now, if we were to convert homes into homestays and agri-lodges, experiencing culture and farming, tourism of that kind, suppose 50,000 don't participate, can't, but 20%, 10,000 homes, you spread it into every village, a very home-sized tourism, and if each home isn't overwhelmed, takes roughly 50 tourists in a season, you can have a carrying capacity of 5 lakh tourists without killing Leh, actually making villages live, because every family in the villages will get income right at their homes. Market comes to them. The families that have homestays will prosper, and families that don't can sell their vegetables, can sell their handicrafts that they produce in the winters, therefore market coming to their villages. So you can expand without compromising on nature if managed properly. And that's what we would like to do, training mostly Ladakhi women to become like entrepreneurs that will be the instrumental piece in the jigsaw, whereby these trained alternative university trained women will become entrepreneurs to develop homestays in the villages, and investors from around the world can support them with their investments, and they become sort of small tourism barons or tycoons in their own rights. And this is happening already with some of our students doing the same thing already. So similarly, Ladakh has an opportunity to keep what we have always had, organic farming. And tourism can be an amazing supporter of that. Tourists value healthy food, and these are the people who come to Ladakh. So whole of Ladakh can be converted into an organic destination where you supply what is grown in Ladakh, thereby you charge even more, and every family can produce for what can be consumed by the tourists. Similarly, we hear of lots of problems with taxis and clashes with Ladakhi taxis and outside taxis. I find it difficult to oppose in a free country people who come for business from outside. But what we could do is develop a different strategy. For example, and it is technically possible, and I happen to be a mechanical engineer, that we can have solar-powered charging stations at strategic locations and have solar-powered electric taxis, which no others from anywhere else can match. And thereby, Ladakhis will benefit, nature will smile, and Ladakh is the solar capital of the world. My God, why not in Ladakh? And similarly, motorbikes buzzing around. We could have bicycles. Yes, it is high altitude, but we can have power-assisted, solar power-assisted bikes. This is already coming in the market. So it doesn't matter what altitude it is, because it is assisted by electricity, but you still get fit like anywhere else. And there could be entrepreneurs who do that. I won't go too much into this, but it is possible to convert Ladakh into a learning place, a pilgrimage of spiritualism, and an open university for the world to come and learn here rather than to exploit a pleasure playground. Thank you very much.